Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Justice for All. Time for the first trial. March 22nd, 9:47 a.m., District Court Defendant Lobby number 3. Adrian did it? That's what it looks like. Dude, no way. That woman couldn't do anything like that. In court today, there will be a mountain of evidence that will implicate you. Mountain of evidence? I'm certain there's someone out there trying very hard to pin this whole thing on you. Please, Mr. Lawyer. Dude, like I said yesterday, I'm refreshing like a spring breeze, alright? I can't let any sort of scandal ruin that. I understand. Well, it's almost time. Mia, we must get a complete acquittal today. I know. But I can't focus on Maya's situation right now. Or Pearl's either. No matter what, I have to focus on winning this case by the end of the day. Indeed. Well, let's get going. Tim. This is Wright. Good morning. This is it, Mr. Attorney. The day of the trial. Maya, she's unharmed, right? Well, when I checked on her earlier this morning, she seemed a bit, how shall we say, tired. Don't worry, people don't die that easily. Besides, what you really should be concentrating on is winning today's trial. For my sake as well as yours, you must win today's trial. Which is why I sent you a little present this morning. Present? What in the world would you want to give me? You'll figure it out once the trial starts. And even if you don't like my gift, I expect you to graciously accept it and win the day's contest, if you please. Wait! Kidnapper sent me a present? Mr. Lawyer Dude, who's that? No one. It has nothing to do with you, so forget you heard anything. Dude, did your nose just get longer? 10 a.m. District Court, courtroom number 3. Court is now in session for the trial of Matt Ungard. Are the prosecution and defense ready? The defense is ready, Your Honor. I say, Mr. Wright, what happened to Miss Von Karma? I don't know, Your Honor. Why are you getting mad at me? Your Honor! Please be quiet, bailiff. Court is in session. If you must tell me something, please keep it brief. Now then, what is it? Prosecutor Von Karma has... This morning, Miss Von Karma was shot by an unknown gunman. What? Shot? Somehow, I think this is the present that man was talking about. His present? Miss Von Karma is one of the top prosecutors in the country at the moment. If she were to disappear, it would be to your advantage. This is totally insane. Miss Von Karma, is she alright? I don't have that answer. She's alive and in stable condition. Oh. She's alive and in stable condition. That's good. Whew. I thought he'd show up. Your Honor, due to the circumstances, Miss Francisca Von Karma cannot appear in court today. I, Miles Edgeworth, will be taking her place. The prosecution is ready, naturally. Miss Von Karma was shot in her right shoulder and is currently undergoing surgery. Luckily, I have looked this case over and am familiar with the details. The prosecution seeks to prove the guilt of Mr. Matt Ungard. The court acknowledges the prosecution. Right. I finally found the answer I was struggling for on my long journey this past year. By the time this case comes to an end, you too will know the answer. Now then, the prosecution would like to call its first witness. Please bring Detective Gumshoe to this witness stand. Witness, your name and occupation. My name's Dick Gumshoe, sir. I'm a detective down at the precinct. For now. For now? After this trial's over, I'm supposed to turn in my badge, sir. Detective Gumshoe? The prosecution has no need for a depressed witness. Lift your head up and face forward like a proud officer, Detective Gumshoe. Yes, sir. Now, let's have your testimony. If we want to explore the various facets of this case, we must start with that. Get ready, Phoenix. This is going to be one very rough fight. Yeah, it would have to be with Edgeworth as my opponent. The answer he was struggling for. Interesting. Show me this answer you finally found, Edgeworth. Bare facts of the case. This murder happened after the Hero of Heroes award ceremony, sir. The victim, Juan Corrida, was found dead in his hotel room. After looking into the cause of death, we believe he was definitely murdered, sir. At first, we thought there was something suspicious about the empty guitar case. However, we later found out the card case had nothing to do with the murder. After the award ceremony ended, the victim was alone in his room. Yes, sir. Both the victim and the defendant went alone to their rooms, sir. I see. Mr. Wright, you may begin your cross-examination. Bare facts of the case. This murder happened after the Hero of Heroes award ceremony, sir. Would you please give us the brief timeline of what happened after the ceremony? Okay, pal. Ceremony started at 6 p.m. It ended around 8 p.m., and then there was a short break. A special post-ceremony show was supposed to start in the lobby 30 minutes later. And that's when the victim's body was found, correct? Which is to say, the murder occurred during that 30-minute break period. Please continue with your testimony, Detective. The victim, Juan Corrida, was found dead in his hotel room. The person who discovered the victim's body was Adrian Andrews, correct? Yeah. Who is this Adrian Andrews you're talking about? She's the defendant, Matt Unguard's manager. She's a really pretty lady, sir. Ah, so she's a pretty lady. I wonder if she will grace us with her presence. And when the post-ceremony show was about to start, she went to get Mr. Ungard. And after visiting his room, she went to the victim's room to get him for the show, sir. I see. And that's when she found the victim's body. After looking into the cause of death, we believed he was definitely murdered, sir. The cause of death. Wasn't that because Mr. Corrida was stabbed in the chest? Only a careless amateur would believe something so brainless as that, pal. Take a good, hard look at the crime photo. Now, a real pro's attention would be drawn here, to this bandana. Banana? His bandana, sir. That thing wrapped tightly around his neck, sir. Oh, yes, I see. His banana-scented bandana. Then what about the knife? It seems to have been stuck in the victim's chest on purpose after his death. We have a crafty murderer on our hands here. Time of death, 8:15 p.m. Cause, strangled with a scarf, then stabbed with a knife. Yeah, at first, we thought there was something suspicious about the empty guitar case. And why did you think that? Because it was empty, pal! The Gemma Ninja doesn't go anywhere without his bright red guitar. We couldn't find it anywhere at the scene of the crime. Oh, then how about this theory? A fan really wanted the guitar and did the crime to get it. How's that? We thought of that too, but... The only fingerprints on the guitar case were the victims. Only the victims, huh? I see. Oh, so much for my theory, then. Empty. There is some water, but only on top of the lid. It bears Corrida's fingerprints. However, we later found out the guitar case has nothing to do with the murder. What convinced you it had nothing to do with the case? The guitar wasn't at the Gatewater Hotel that night. Well then, where was it? The bright red guitar was eventually found at the TV studio. The victim, Juan Corda, had apparently only taken the case with him, sir. So you mean he forgot to put the guitar inside the case? Yes, sir. Even when he was on stage for the ceremony, he didn't have his guitar. So that guitar case was empty even before he got to the hotel? Yeah, that's right. So it really had nothing to do with the case after all. I believe that is enough. First, the victim was choked to death with his bandana. Then, after the victim was dead, the killer deliberately stabbed him with a knife. Which brings me to my next point. Why, then, did the police arrest Matt Ungard? Because there was reason enough to suspect him. Here it comes. Looks like Edgeworth's back in full swing. Very well. Detective Gumshoe, please testify about this matter. Yes, sir. Why arrest Ungard? Matt Ungard and Juan Corda were huge rivals with each other. They each thought the other was in his way. That's motive enough in my book. As for evidence, there's the Gem and Ninja's button. It was ripped off of the ninja costume and was found in Mr. Ungard's hakama. The defendant's fingerprints were also all over the knife. The defendant bought the knife for the crime. Which makes this a premeditated murder. So the defendant's fingerprints were found on the knife used in the stabbing. It was sort of sticky on the handle, so the fingerprints came out pretty clearly, sir. Bears the victim's blood and Ungard's fingerprints. In the grip, Gatewater is engraved. And there's this button. It was found in the defendant's clothes, was it? And is this button also covered in blood? Yes, and we know that the blood on it is the victim's blood, sir. What? Was ripped from his costume, is covered in Corda's blood, found in Ungard's hakama. All of this points very clearly to the defendant, doesn't it? Yes, it most certainly does, Your Honor. Ready to give in yet, Wright? I'll find the hole in your argument somehow. You can press as hard as you like. Just hurry up with your usually pointless questions. Why arrest Ungard? Matt Ungard and Juan Corda were huge rivals with each other. But in terms of popularity, Mr. Ungard won, did he not? Yeah, but you know what's ironic, pal? Juan Corda was always one step behind Mr. Ungard in everything. This year, it seemed like he'd finally caught up, ready for the big final showdown. But Mr. Corda lost the Grand Prix in the end. That is too bad. He must have been pretty downhearted after losing. They each thought the other guy was in his way. That's motive enough in my book. Wait just 1 second here. Mr. Ungard was beating Mr. Corda in the popularity polls. Well, yeah, I guess, but... Which means that in the defendant's eyes, the victim was not a rival at all. Which means he had no motive to kill at all. Yes, I quite agree. Well, Detective? It's not... Well... I guess if you put it that way, then yeah, the defendant would have had no motive. Detective, I'm beginning to see why you were fired. No, not you too, Mr. Edgeworth, sir. That's... I look forward to your pension negotiations. No! Now, Detective. Let's continue with the testimony. No, not my poor pension, too. Detective, if you value your money, I suggest you proceed. Yes, sir. We can talk about my pension later, sir. What about what I was saying? Hello? Anyone? As for evidence, there's the Jam and Ninja's button. Do you have any proof that button belonged to the victim? Huh? What do you mean, pal? Oh, let me put it this way. I'm asking you if you have any evidence to back up your claim that this button was ripped off of the Jam and Ninja's costume. Huh? Can't you tell just by looking at it? And the victim's blood is on it. Anyone could have smeared that blood on there afterwards. Mr. Edgeworth, help me, sir! Alright, I knew it had to be this piece of evidence. Now to reel this one in. Thread. Huh? The button was attached to the costume by thread, obviously. And that thread snapped when the button was torn off. If you match up the ends of the thread on the costume with the thread on the button, it's a perfect match. Yeah, that's it. They're a perfect match, pal. That's Edgeworth for you. Never misses a beat. It was ripped off of the ninja costume and was found in Mr. Ungard's Hakama. When was this button found? Pretty soon after the body was found, we rounded up everyone who knew Mr. Korida. Then we did a search on them all, and that's when we found the button. So it was almost immediately after the murder. The police didn't have the free time to lollygag and play tricks, unlike some people. Hey, what is he trying to say about me here? The defendant's fingerprints were also all over the knife. How were the fingerprints arranged on the knife? Huh? What do you mean, pal? By examining the fingerprints, you can determine how the defendant held the knife. For example, did he hold it normally or overhand? Oh, is that what you mean? Well, we didn't actually think of that. I can't believe the bumbling of this department. Hopeless. Were you paying attention to the testimony, right? The defendant's fingerprints were all over the knife. There's no way to determine how the knife was held at the moment of the murder. So, is the defendant the owner of this knife, then? The defendant bought the knife for the crime, which makes it a premeditated murder. There's no way this was premeditated murder, even if he bought the knife. Sorry, pal. This isn't some pocket knife. It doesn't fold, so it's not great for walking around with either. Well, this is not good. If the prosecution can prove it was a premeditated murder, we're done for. Phoenix. Yes? There's something very interesting about what the detective said just now. Think carefully before it's too late. A button covered in the victim's blood and a knife with Ungard's fingerprints. Be grateful. If the judge were more rash, he would have already pounded his gavel in closing. We're still in a world of trouble. Well, before any battle, you must find your enemy's weakness. So let's find the weakness in this testimony, no matter how small it may be. Okay, Phoenix? Not on guard and blah, blah, blah. It's the very last one. Makes this a premeditated murder. The question is, Gatewater is engraved. Means it's a Gatewater knife. But then also, strangled with a scarf, then stabbed with a knife. Why not just stab him with the knife? So, it's one of these two. It's the fact that it's the Gatewater knife. Or it's the fact that, why didn't he just use the knife? Why strangle him with a scarf and then stab him with the knife? I'm gonna use this one. Nope. It's Gatewater. Yeah. Okay. Wait a second. What? The basis of your argument was that this was a premeditated murder is simply that my client bought a knife beforehand? That's right, pal. The defendant did not buy this knife. Huh? Take a good look at the handle of this knife, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Huh? It has a Gatewater seal set into the handle. Gatewater. I think I've heard that name somewhere before. That's the name of the hotel. The Gatewater Hotel? Uh-oh. The murder knife was actually property of the hotel, which means this murder was not premeditated. Yes, that is very true. This is a very big... What is it, Mr. Edgeworth? I'm sorry, but the defense is simply too careless. What? I think whether the crime was premeditated or not has already been determined. How so? I admit this knife is hotel property. There is no one currently on the police force that is dumb enough not to realize this. But I didn't... Oh. The question is... Where did this knife come from? Why, that's obvious. Came from the victim, Mr. Corrida's room. Sorry, Your Honor, but that is incorrect. The victim ate a last meal before he was murdered. With that being the case, I would like to draw the court's attention to what is on top of the table. There's a knife and a fork on the table. Then, where in the world did this knife come from? If it pleases the court, I would like for us to recall the room of the defendant Master Matt on guard. Especially what was on top of his table. There's something missing. Perhaps it is a single knife. We investigated the leftover dishes for fingerprints, and while we were investigating, we came to the conclusion that Mr. Matt on guard's knife was missing. Mr. on guard had gone to the victim's room with the knife he had used during dinner. Why would he carry a knife on a visit? To kill, of course. And with that, I believe the prosecution has proven this was a premeditated murder. Amazing, Mr. Edgeworth. Absolutely brilliant. A brilliantly clear deduction. It seems like Edgeworth has this plan from the very beginning. This must be one of those traps, and I just walked headlong into it. A murder weapon with fingerprints and a button from the victim's costume. There is quite a sizable amount of evidence here. I can safely say that any further deliberation is a waste of your Honor's time. Although, I wouldn't mind if the defense were to present evidence not yet shown to the court. Evidence not yet shown? He means evidence that the court hasn't seen yet. In other words, new evidence. What does the defense have to say about this, Mr. Wright? Well... Phoenix. The judge is favoring the prosecution right now. If we answer with something wrong here, that gavel of his will be ringing out to the sound of our defeat. Mr. Wright, do you have something important and necessary to present to this court? There's one piece of evidence that catches my attention. Something that this court has yet to see. Mr. Wright, I will say this one more time. I do not feel this trial needs to continue at all. However, I am giving you one chance. And only one. Ah, damn. Well. What the judge is saying, Wright, is don't try pulling one of your usual bluffs here. If I mess this up, it's curtains for all of us. You may now present one, and only one, piece of evidence. Now then, what is this important evidence that you must show to the court? Please help me! No. I think it's this. Where's the picture of the murder? Because it's just there. Okay. This is a wine glass, is it not? Please look at the photo of the crime scene one more time. The scene is a mess because of the victim's struggle against his assailant. The vase was broken, his makeup is all over the floor. These were all things that were at one point sitting on top of the dresser. Well, yes, I see your point. However, this glass that is sitting on top of the dresser is mysteriously untouched. The only thing that had not fallen over, along with everything else, is this wine glass. This piece of evidence is more than strange enough to warrant further consideration. Well, what do you all have to say? Ah, well, yes, it is a little peculiar. Yes, isn't it? I thought it was. You could stop looking at me with those puppy dog eyes of yours now. Mr. Edgeworth! What is it, Your Honor? Your opinion. You don't need my opinion, because there is no special meaning to that glass. What? It's safe to say that the glass was set there after the crime took place. By the person who discovered the body, Adrian Andrews, for example. She could have easily been so shocked that she set the glass down without thinking. That does sound very plausible. Mr. Wright! Could Miss Andrews really have set that glass down without thinking? Tomato juice, though. He drinks tomato juice. If I appear weak here, the trial is over. I can look for my proof later. For now, I should trust my instinct and point with certainty. They just might fall for it, if you're thought-provoking enough. The defense would like to challenge the prosecution's theory. We would like to see something that proves it was Miss Adrian's who set the cup on the table. You've turned the situation on its head yet again, as usual. Mr. Edgeworth, do you have any proof to back up your claim? No way he has any. He's just bluffing. Unlike Mr. Wright, I never say anything unless I have the evidence to support it. What? You're not thinking hard enough today, right? Did you think this wine glass escaped my notice? Then... Of course it has been thoroughly inspected. For fingerprints. Fingerprints? There were only one set of fingerprints left on this wine glass. Only one? Well, whose were they? They were not the victims nor the defendants. Rather, they were of one Adrian Andrews. What? There's Andrews' fingerprints. That is why I said that the person who had discovered the body had left it there. We are done here, Mr. Wright. Are we done here, Mr. Wright? I can't believe it. I fell into another trap. Miss Andrews was probably holding the glass when she went to see Mr. Corrida. But upon seeing his dead body, she was stunned and set the glass down on the dresser. What you just said makes a lot of sense. Now, do you see, Wright? You can't change any part of my scenario as it explains everything all too well. I've thought long and hard this past year about what it means to be a prosecutor. And from here on out, I will show you the answer I've come to discover. Wait a second. Mr. Edgeworth! I think the prosecution has provided enough evidence for me to enter my verdict. Unfortunately, I cannot allow you to pass judgment yet. The prosecution is yet another witness we would like the court to hear from. Another witness? Yes. Bailiff, please bring in the next witness. What in the world is Mr. Edgeworth thinking? Now then, witness, please state your name and occupation. Witness, your name and occupation, please.
Gotcha!
I wonder what happened to that calm composure he had earlier.
Oh, Edgy boy, it's been what, a year since we last met, hasn't it? You should be more happy to see me.
I saw the report with her testimony, but who knew that under that helmet, it was the Wicked Witch of the witness stand.
I tell you, this time I know what I'm supposed to do. So today, I'm gonna tell you anything and everything. Even though I don't have to... Even things that don't have to do with that terrible crime.
Miss Witness, that terrible crime is all the court needs to know.
Oh! Hush! I'm talking to my dear Edgy Wedgie right now. Don't interrupt us, Gramps.
Yes, madam.
No, please, by all means, interrupt her. Please!
Anyway, witness, your testimony, please.
It's true what they say, that youth are hot-headed nowadays. Not that I mind at all, Edgy. Now then, what should I start with?
The witness was on security detail at the hotel on the night of the murder. Is this correct, Miss Oldbag?
It was a great job being able to see my dearie Juan. It was almost too much for my little heart to handle.
You mean you were a fan of the victim?
Look, everyone is crazy over that on guard, saying he's cute in a fresh way or something. But not me. I wouldn't say anything so silly. After all, I have no interest in a little child like him. I'm only interested in a real man, Juan Corda.
But those two were the same age.
Anyway, as I was saying, I was pacing in front of his room that night.
Very well. Please tell the court what you witnessed the night of the murder.
Leave it to me, Edgy Poo.
What you witnessed.
Anyway, after the ceremony, I went to pace around in the hallway in front of his room. There was something I was interested in finding out, you know. Well, since I was on the job, I made sure to keep a good eye out the whole time. That's when someone showed up. It was a man coming out of poor Juan's room. It was on guard. Matt on guard. He was trying to sneak his way out of Juan's room.
Mr. Ungard came out from the victim's room.
See, it has to be him. He's the murderer.
I see. Well, Mr. Wright, you may begin your cross-examination.
Anyway, after the ceremony, I went to pace around in the hallway in front of his room.
Miss Oldbag, what was your post on that night?
The lobby. I was supposed to help set up the stage for that trifling show. But I refused to help, I'll have you know. It was for that lead-headed samurai show. Huh. I even took out a few of the nails.
Maybe it was a good thing the show didn't go on.
Besides, that manager with the glasses seemed to be working hard at it without me. So I thought I'd take a break and spread my wings a little.
And that's when you went to hang around the victim's door?
There was something I was interested in finding out, you know.
Something you were interested in? And just what was that?
Not some little thing I could just go around telling everyone, you know. It's top secret between me and Juan. Ah, and Edgy Poo, of course.
Mr. Edgeworth, what is this thing she was interested in?
I have no idea. I despise gossip, Your Honor.
Gossip?
But should it prove relevant, we can always have it appended to her testimony later. It looks like we shouldn't force it right now.
And did the witness stay in the vicinity of the victim's door the entire time?
Well, since I was on the job, I made sure to keep a good eye out the whole time.
Oh? Then would you tell us the number of people who went in and out of Mr. Corrida's room?
I have no idea! I wasn't born so I can count things for those who didn't pay attention in class. That's why, ever since I turned 20, I quit keeping track of how old I really am.
Yes, well, that would explain why your age was not included in the report.
In any case, the witness then saw someone, correct?
That's when someone showed up. It was a man coming out of poor Juan's room.
Who in the world was that?
I'm not allowed to say. This sort of information has to be carefully guarded from the masses, Sonny. The man that came out of Juan's room. It was... He was...
Yes, he was...
I'm too scared. I can't say his name out loud.
Oh, what I wouldn't give to have Francisco's whip right about now.
Well, I guess I can tell you, since he was such a bad boy anyway. It was on guard, Matt on guard. He was trying to sneak his way out of Juan's room.
You saw my client? Are you sure about that?
Yes, he.
Really?
Annoying brat. When I say I saw someone, I saw that person.
Why do I get a sense of deja vu? Maybe to avoid a repeat of last year, I should delve into this a bit further. Please tell the court about the man's clothes in more detail.
What a troublesome man you are, really, as if something like that matters.
But it does.
Now what was it? Oh, yes, it was that thing.
That thing?
That gaudy thing he's always wearing, that racing jacket.
Ah, he was wearing that at the detention center, too.
That thing's meant for nothing but seducing women out of their pantaloons. Men.
Right. Oh, Mr. Wright, was this testimony just now important or relevant in any way? I guess it really wasn't that important after all. Mr. Wright, do you know why we say time is valuable? If not, I suggest you learn.
You've wasted 3 minutes of this woman's youth. That's more valuable than gold to me.
Why do I suddenly feel old in the presence of her childish whining?
She may not remember things or be mistaken here and there, but I don't think she's lying.
That's bad for us. Really bad.
But that's how the human mind is. It also has the tendency to jump off topic. She strayed out a few interesting side topics this time too, hasn't she? But that's what makes her a sweet old lady, right?
That's because you're not the one who has to question her. Please tell the court about the man's face in more detail.
You don't need me to tell you about his face. That soft, gentle look in his eyes and his effeminate lips. His right eye covered by his silky hair, his sparkling, shining teeth.
His teeth were shining?
Well, he's shining all around in this week's pin-up poster, dearie.
This week's pin-ups? Why do you... I don't care how he looks in this week's issue. Please stay with what you saw that night.
What? Unguard's face is the same no matter where it is. You know, you whippersnapper.
Oh, Mr. Wright, was this testimony just now important or relevant? It was not important. Okay, and now for the real one. Well, probably the real one. Unless it's just one wild goose chase. What was the man you saw carrying?
In which hand? His right or his left? Now this is a real mess. I can't be expected to answer such a vague question.
Indeed. Please be more specific with your question, Mr. Wright. Sorry. What was the man you saw carrying in his right hand?
He wasn't carrying anything in that hand.
Then how about his left?
Empty.
Well, this whole thing has been a lot of nothing. Oh, Mr. Wright. Was this testimony just now important or relevant in any way? Actually, wait a minute. It was found in his hakama. Wait a minute, the first one was important. The very first one that I did. Of course it was important, Your Honor.
Then perhaps you would like to point out what part of that testimony was important.
Don't you see it, Edgeworth? Your Honor, I request what the witness said about the jacket be appended to her testimony. I don't quite see where you're going with this, but alright, witness. Please.
Well, I don't like to badmouth anyone without reason, but if I must... He was wearing his flashy racing jacket. Honestly, it's all just for show.
Are you sure the defendant was wearing a racing jacket?
What do you think? It's not like I've seen him in anything other than that horrible thing. I'm sure he was wearing it.
She's so sure of herself that it's the point of self-absorption.
She may not remember the ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
Miss Oldbag.
What? Don't say my name for no reason.
Do you know what this is?
Ah, it's button number 2 on Jim and Ninja's costume.
Now I know she's an obsessed fan. She identified it in a single glance.
Give it here, give it here. If you don't give it to me, I'll punish you with it. With this.
Wow, she really is a die-hard fan to want a button covered in blood. This button was discovered on Mr. Ungard's body during a full-body search.
See? This button proves beyond a shadow of a doubt it was that rascal on guard.
It was caught up in the pleats of his nickel samurai hakama pants.
See? And on guard is the nickel samurai.
Witness! Now, it may just be me, and I do have an active imagination. But just now, didn't you say that the defendant, Matt Ungard, was wearing his usual racing jacket?
Ah, I'm so sorry. Sorry that you judge people based on what they wear. If I wore the trendiest clothes, but instead I have to wear this ridiculous-looking outfit. This outfit is ridiculous. A tape recorder stuck. It's heavy, so heavy. Dreaming alive, these kids. I work so hard with a smile on my face. See, don't take a look in your mirror. Your clothes documentary on curling. Edgy poo.
Now hold your tongue still there for 1 second. So what you saw in actuality was not Mr. Ungard, the man, but Mr. Ungard, the Nickel Samurai.
And when you think about it, they're really one and the same anyway.
Miss Oldbag, this is a very important point we're talking about.
Edgy poo, do you think so too?
Well, it might be something worth considering. Just say it's important and agree with me for a change. Witness, think carefully and try to remember as much as you can before you testify.
All right, if you insist.
I should be the one sighing, not you. Who I saw.
On guard. Yes, now I remember. The Nickel Samurai. That's right, it was the Nickel Samurai that I saw. Yes, it would have been convenient for him to wear his costume during the murder. He had to go to that post-ceremony stage show right after the crime, you know. So he must have worn the Nickel Samurai costume when he was stabbing poor Juan.
I knew it. I knew you'd say he was inside that costume.
What? Did you think there could have been someone else inside that costume? Don't be a bad little boy, thinking about such rude things.
But the possibility does exist.
Ah, you youngins today. I told you there's no way it was anyone else.
How do you know that?
Because I said so, and what I say is the truth.
At least she's just as delightful a witness as she was a year ago. Mr. Wright, you may cross-examine the witness. Who I saw.
On guard. Yes, now I remember.
Would you please get on with your testimony?
Watch your language, young man. What sort of tone is that to take with an elder? My youthfulness isn't what it used to be, so you should forgive me for everything. If you keep on barking at me like that, I'll start singing at the top of my lungs.
What?
A striking figure by the sea, standing all alone is he. He's the Nickel Samurai.
He's actually singing. Someone help my poor ears. Mr. Edgeworth, can you please do something about this racket? Witness, I'll give you a piece of gum later if you'll be good and stick to just the facts.
Okay. You promise, right?
Right. I'll be sending the bill for the chewing gum to your office at a later date. Remind me to send you a thank you note later too, Edgeworth, old chum.
The Nickel Samurai. That's right, it was the Nickel Samurai that I saw.
Be a little more careful with your testimony, please. Not too long ago, you said he was wearing his racing jacket, and now he's not?
Not too long ago. Then let me ask you this. When you were itty-bitty, what was your grand dream?
Huh?
What did you want to be when you grew up, whippersnapper?
My dream, huh? Well, I wanted to be Judge Wagner, hero of the public's court. So what?
See? And look at where you are now. You're not Judge Wagner, are you? Are you?
Well,
What I said earlier. Who puts any weight into things like that? The now is everything. I can't be held responsible for the past.
since when did court become theatrics over testimony?
All that matters is the man was inside that costume. Isn't that enough? Yes, it would have been convenient for him to wear his costume during the murder.
And why would that be?
That way, no one would see his face, of course.
But there's still no advantage for him that I can see. In fact, you would think the costume would make him stand out all the more.
You are such an annoying child, you know that. You disagree with everything I say.
Isn't that what you're always doing to me?
I got it. Maybe it was more troublesome for him to change in and out of his costume. He had to go to that post-ceremony stage show right after the crime, you know.
Was there anyone else scheduled to appear at the post-ceremony show?
Well, all the contestants were supposed to go on stage in a friendly gesture thing.
And that included the Jammin' Ninja?
Of course it included him. That's why, when On Guard came out of Dear Juan's room, I didn't give it a second thought.
I see.
Well, anyway. So he must have worn that Nickel Samurai costume when he was stabbing poor Juan.
Let me ask you one last time. The person you saw, it really was the Nickel Samurai?
As showy as ever. Haven't I been saying that from the very beginning?
Can I throw in the towel yet?
You don't need to think too hard on this one.
Huh?
There's a contradiction in her testimony, and it's sitting in plain sight. The question is what that contradiction means for us.
Well, I have to figure out what you're talking about first, but okay. Nope. Oh wait, he was wearing a costume. Why is the fingerprints on the knife? Please take a look at this.
Yeah, so it's the knife. Big deal. If you're trying to scare me with that, I'll have you know it won't work.
No, that's not my intention at all. That's the knife that was used in the murder, correct? Your Honor, do you know why this piece of evidence is important to this case? You don't even have to ask. It's because the defendant's fingerprints are on it.
Is that what you're driving at?
That is exactly what I'm driving at. What are you driving at? And whose car are we driving? If Mr. Ungard was really in the Nickel Samurai costume at the time of the murder, then it's impossible for his fingerprints to have been left on this knife. Actually, he would have wiped all previous fingerprints on this knife right off. Oh, that's right. The Nickel Samurai wears gloves, doesn't he?
He probably took his gloves off before he began the stabbing.
And why would he do something like that? To leave his prints on the murder weapon? There's no way he would do something like that.
However, there is one possibility.
Then let's hear your possibility.
It's very simple. The defendant went to the victim's room while in costume as the Nickel Samurai. At that time, the defendant held no intent to murder. He was probably just going to relax and talk with the victim about the stage show. Which is why he took his gloves off.
But the murder still did take place.
It's well known that there was bad blood between the defendant and the victim.
Yes, I have heard that before. Well, Mr. Wright, what do you have to say about Mr. Edgeworth's theory? let me get this straight. Edgeworth's theory goes like this. When the defendant went to the victim's room, he had no intention of killing him. Now, up to this point, are there any problems with this theory? This theory contradicts something in an earlier testimony. What are you babbling about? Now, for argument's sake, let's suppose Mr. Ungard was the killer. If that's the case, I think it's impossible for the killer to have gone to the victim's room without intent. This knife. This was used by Mr. Ungard at dinner. Yes, we did establish that. Which means that if my client was in fact the killer, then he brought this knife with him when he went to visit Mr. Corrida. I suppose. However, you just said it yourself. At that time, the defendant held no intent to murder. If that were true, then why would he bring a knife? He wouldn't, would he? Which means, Mr. Edgeworth, your theory was flawed from supposition 1. What? I hate big words. And one more thing. If the murderer was wearing the costume at the time of the murder, then there would be glove marks left on the knife. Which means the defendant's fingerprints shouldn't be all over it like bees on a hive. And that brings me to my final point. This knife was planted by the real killer to hide their identity and mislead us. Order! Order, I say! Order in the court! Was this knife really planted by the killer? Why would the murderer do such a thing? It's to frame my client, Mr. Ungard, of course. To frame? Aren't you forcing the interpretation just a little too hard on this one? But we just established that the witness saw the Nickel Samurai in costume. And if that were true, then there shouldn't be a single fingerprint on this knife. Witness?
Looks like I've made your life a tiny bit more difficult, huh, Edgy Poo?
Witness, did you or did you not really see the Nickel Samurai?
Well, I guess at first I might have forgotten, but...
Are you saying you mix up Mr. Ungard with the Nickel Samurai, his character on TV?
But I mean, I can't really do anything about that now. Look, I was waiting around in front of their doors because, well, I wasn't waiting around for the Nickel Samurai, that's for sure.
He wasn't waiting for the Nickel Samurai? Alright then, who were you waiting around for then?
That's top secret to anyone outside of security.
I have a feeling that you were waiting for Mr. Juan Corrida, am I correct, witness?
Ha ha ha. The way you think, you are a sad amateur with a terrible case of nearsightedness.
Amateur? Me? What am I an amateur of? The old bag was waiting around in front of the victim's room. But it doesn't sound like she was waiting to catch a glimpse of Mr. Corrida. Maybe, Phoenix. Maybe the old bag was waiting around for that person. That's who I think Mia's hinting at. It's certainly possible. Miss Oldbag, you were waiting around for this person to come out of the victim's room, weren't you? Who is this person? This is Adrian Andrews, Mr. Ungard's manager. Well, why would the defendant's manager be in the victim's room? It seems that this is the latest rumor in circulation, Your Honor. Oh, this is... Oh, I see. The judge seems to be really into the article, if it can be called such a thing. This manager with the initials AA, are you saying it's... Adrian Andrews. Without a doubt, the witness thought so as well.
Looks like you found me out. Well, that's fine. I can throw away this whole sworn to confidentiality stuff then.
Witness, what in the world are you...
Watch out, Phoenix. I've got a bad feeling about this. A very bad feeling. I got some information. Some very secret information from a certain source. So that's why I was doing my own little investigation. In secret, of course.
But what for?
Oh, just for myself. Personal reasons and all that.
Well, Mr. Edgeworth, how will you proceed from here? I really don't want to do this. However, I cannot simply let this point slide. I see. Very well then. Witness, please testify about this secret information.
Get ready? This is gonna take the wind out of you youngins.
I'm sure we're all capable of handling this. Really. It's not like we're 10 years old. Secret information.
Guard is one evil, evil man. He thought he could ruin poor Juan by causing a huge scandal. So to do that, he sent his own manager to get in close with Juan. I cannot condone such dirty tricks, so I took action. Oh, and this is top secret, you got that? Nobody else but you and me know yet, okay?
The defendant sent his manager. What a distasteful topic for this court.
What? Nobody's above gossip. And isn't there a saying, the truth is never pleasant?
Never heard that one before. Mr. Edgeworth, what about this Adrian Andrews person? We have looked into this matter, and found that the truth the article proposes is, in fact, baseless gossip. Should this be true? And this proves that the defendant did bear ill will towards the victim. This means I have to smash this rumor once and for all. Now then, Mr. Wright, you may cross-examine the witness. Be careful. The old bag seems rather excited right now.
That's right, on guard is nothing but your average foul-blooded youth.
Well, as the old saying goes, you've got to burn old bags with fire. Time to fire up the afterburners and hit the highway to the danger zone. Fucking what?
That guard is one evil, evil man.
You can't say something like that without proof. That's just slander.
But it's true. That woman was getting intimate with poor Juan. Look, it says so right here, doesn't it? Manager to the stars, Miss A.A.
But the name of the magazine this comes from is Gossip Land.
What? Are you saying that gossip is all just a pack of lies? What do you know? I suppose next you'll swear to me that the news is 100% truth. Honestly, Sonny, you can't discriminate between the news and gossip.
Yes, discrimination is bad, Mr. Wright.
Discriminate? When did I do anything like that?
Anyway, on guard will never get me to say touche. He thought he could ruin poor Juan by causing a huge scandal.
A scandal? What do you mean by that?
You're a dim-witted one, aren't you? I can't believe you don't know what a scandal is. Honestly, what are they teaching kids in middle school these days?
No, I wasn't asking what the word scandal means. Even I know that much.
Well, that on guard thought he would own a monopoly on popularity. So to do that, he sent his own manager to get in close with Juan.
You don't have any proof that Mr. Ungard did any such thing.
You must be suffering from shock. The shock of hearing the truth. And now, since you're in so much shock, you can't do anything right.
You're right. I can't do anything. But boy, do I wish I could do something about you.
Alright then, Sonny. Show me what you've got. Can you show me proof that Ungard didn't bear any ill will towards Juan?
I don't have anything to offer.
See, just as I thought. And you were lecturing me without saying anything without proof. You've just given me a free pass to say whatever I want, whenever I want, silly boy.
Me and my big mouth.
That's the way the cookie crumbles. For you, anyway. I can't condone such dirty tricks, so I took action.
So, what do you mean by I took action?
Like I already told you, I was lying in wait close to the crime scene. Once that slimy woman came out of Juan's room, I was going to capture her and teach her a good lesson, Something you youngins need.
You were going to teach her a good lesson.
I was going to make her eat the damaging beams of my ray gun. Like this.
No, stop!
Well, it was too bad that woman didn't come through the door that night. Oh, and this is top secret, you got that? Nobody else but you and me know yet, okay?
Wait.
What? I'm a busy woman. Tea time with the kids is over.
Secret information that no one knows yet? If that's true, then how do you know this secret information?
Well, that's because I'm a pro. Yes, that's it. It's a secret. Even you drilled a hole into my brain. You'll never find out.
How in the world did that old bat get such a secret piece of information? If you don't be a good... What? if you don't be a good girl and tell me where you got this secret information, you won't get to go home today.
Edgy-poo, what are you doing? Help me!
What do I have to do with this?
Just do this for me. You'll get your reward.
I don't want your reward, but you don't leave me much of a choice. The witness could have gotten her information from anywhere. It's even possible that it was spontaneously made up inside the witness's head.
He lectures me on reckless babbling. As long as we don't know where this information came from, it's quite a waste of time to focus on this line of questioning. Where did Old Bag get this inside information? There has to be something I can use to figure this out.
Sounds like just another tidbit of gossip, doesn't it? But you can't just ignore it either. It makes your client look bad either way.
Well, I don't think I heard anything really out of the ordinary just now.
There has to be something we can catch her on.
Yeah, and when I find out, I'm gonna press the heck out of it. So no one else is supposed to know this secret information, correct? If that's true, then why do you know it, Miss Oldbag?
Why are you looking at me like that? Stop that!
Witness! I hate to say it, but this is how you came to acquire your secret info, isn't it? The investigative photographer, Lotta Hart. Oh yes, I remember that mischievous girl. She reported that she had lost a certain note she had written to herself. She reported such a thing. On that piece of paper, she had written down some of her outrageous impressions about the relationship between the victim and Miss Andrews.
What? Outrageous ideas, you say?
No, I said impressions.
Then everything written on this piece of paper is completely meaningless.
Ah, that's it. That's the note.
No, you see, this is something completely different. This is my top secret list of groceries to buy.
And you're the one who took Miss Hart's note.
I'm a huge fan of Juan, that's why. That infamous, puffy-haired whippersnapper. She's working with that evil Ungard. She said so herself. Ungard, I'm his sidekick. She was so happy, smiling like a silly duck. I was only checking what she had written. Edgy-poo, you believe me, don't you? I was only trying to help out like the angel I am. It's only one little piece of paper. I've never taken anything else before.
You really should come with a supply of cheese to match your vintage wine.
Well, it was only a piece of paper. I suppose we can overlook this just this once. Looks like she's really sorry. Should I forgive her? I guess we should forgive her.
Who the heck are you to decide who should be forgiven, you delinquent?
Number of endearing qualities, 0.
Phoenix, you can't go easy on her. She's no frail old lady.
Yeah.
You should be pressing her until she gives in.
Mia's really scary today. Witness! You said that the only thing you stole was that note. Is this correct?
Stole? Why don't you listen more carefully, you annoying brat? I saved this piece of paper from the terrible, lonely trash can, that's all.
You're lying, damn it, and I can prove it.
Are you putting my credibility under scrutiny again?
Miss Oldbag, I don't believe that the note is the only thing you stole that night. Miss Oldbag, that note was with a camera inside its case, wasn't it? A camera? Yesterday, Lotta Hart was raising a huge stink over her camera. She kept saying something like, my sweetie $16,000 camera disappeared on me. Why, witness!
What is it, Gramps?
If you have the note, then it is only logical that you have the camera, too.
Looks like you found me out again, Sonny. Is this the camera you're looking for?
That's...
What? Even though I look like this, I'm still a person, you know. I still eat meals like you, I fall in love and borrow things from people.
I think your definition of borrow is a little off.
I saw that woman's business card, and that's when I noticed it said, Slimebag Celebrity Photographer Extraordinaire. Well, when I saw that, I had to know what sort of picture she had taken. I'm a professional security guard. It's my business to know these things.
Bailiff, check this camera's photos. Hurry. We must examine them at once. Well, Mr. Edgeworth, what do we have?
There's only one photo that seems to be relevant to this case.
Please present it to the court. This is the Nickel Samurai.
See, I told you. That's the guy I saw.
This proves that the witness was not lying earlier about this matter.
Picture taken in the hallway right after the murder.
What does all this mean, Mr. Edgeworth?
This photo by itself does not prove that the person in it is the defendant. However, in his own confession, Mr. Ungard clearly stated that at the time of the murder, he was still in his Nickel Samurai costume.
If that is the case, then this Nickel Samurai is...
the defendant.
How did it come to this? I think this brings us to the end. We've examined every piece of evidence thoroughly. Final comments, Mr. Wright. The court will consider them before we close. Do you agree that this photo is decisive evidence against your client?
Is this photo really decisive?
If this photo really is decisive, then we're done for. But if I raise an objection here and blow it, then I would put Maya's life in jeopardy. I can't make a mistake here. There's only one road out of this mess. This photo that Lotta took. There's something strange with this photo.
I knew this was coming, right?
Your thoughts, Mr. Edgeworth?
I think we can all agree there is nothing strange with this photo. There is no way for the defense to debunk this photo, even with a bunker buster.
Debunk with a bunker buster? Is that what you're planning to do, Mr. Wright? Anyway, please look at the photo one more time. Do you really believe you can honestly find something wrong with this photo? You should only need one chance, correct? Fuck. So many one chances. Well, I have to find something wrong with this photo. I can't let this chance go by. Where in the heck did she take this photo from anyway? It's all out of focus. Why can't she take a good shot, especially when it counts? Now then, let's hear your objection. What about this photo is strange? Immediate reaction, there's no blood. I think it's the pants. They want me to point at the pants. This person here, of course. You mean the Nickel Samurai? What is wrong with that? At the time of the murder, Mr. Ungard was in his own room, which means this Nickel Samurai is a
If you think that's all it takes, you should reconsider your choice of occupation. I think it's about time you retired.
Looks like there was no problem with this photo after all.
The problem was with the brain of the lawyer, Your Honor.
Wait! You're the only one You are the one who let your last chance fly away. Okay. Maybe it's the room he's coming out of. Stop. Okay. Strange thing is somewhere around here, I think.
Somewhere.
Around here?
I think.
Am I seeing something you all are not? Looks like there was no problem with this photo at all. Fuck. Hang on. Why did the Nickel Samurai get a unique piece of dialogue? Okay. I would like to direct the court's attention to this area right here. What are you pointing to? His ankles? If you could see this person's ankles, well, that would be one thing. However, you can't. And what does that mean? The costumed person in this photo could not have been Mr. On Guard. What is the meaning of this?
I wonder if you would care to elaborate. With actual facts, that is.
Let's take a look at the Nickel Samurai's poster. Please pay particular attention to the area around the bottom of the comma. His socks. You can see his socks. Exactly. However, in this photo, the Nickel Samurai is clearly holding his Akama up just to walk. There is only one explanation for this. The person inside this costume is clearly much shorter than the defendant. Alright, I think I've turned things around for myself this time.
That's curious.
Huh? What is?
Edgeworth is unusually calm today.
That's true.
He's just letting the trial run itself, as if he's only along for the ride.
Along for the ride? What do you mean by that?
I can only guess that perhaps he doesn't feel under attack at all.
He doesn't feel under attack? And I haven't damaged his case at all? Mr. Edgeworth, where does this leave us? If the person in this photo is not Matt on guard, then everything the prosecution has tried to prove has become meaningless.
I figured it would come to this.
What?
Right. I have something I want to ask you. I think you have proven that the person inside this costume is not Matt on guard. In that case, who is this a photo of?
Who is the person wearing the Nickel Samurai costume?
Don't stress out over this, Phoenix. It's very simple. What you should be focusing on is Edgeworth's attitude, don't you think?
Yeah, why is he so calm? Mr. Wright, let's hear your thoughts. Who is the person in this photograph? Adrian Andrews. If you want to know who that Nickel Samurai is, it is none other than this woman.
And why would you say it must be Miss Andrews? What in the world points you to her?
For starters, she's short, and she could freely move in and out of Mr. Ungard's room. Finally, she had dinner with Mr. Ungard that night. And how does that all add up? It means that it makes it very easy for her to get a certain item. A certain knife with Mr. Ungard's fingerprints all over it. The knife that was used as a murder weapon!
Why don't you just say what it is you want, Wright?
I have to do this now. This is my last chance to turn things around. The defense moves to indict Miss Adrian Andrews in the murder of Juan Corrida. It was Miss Andrews who tried to frame the defendant for the crime. Order! 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 It looks like the trial is in a most unexpected development. Mr. Edgeworth.
Yes, Your Honor.
This court is issuing a subpoena for Miss Adrian Andrews. A verdict cannot be passed without first hearing her testimony. All right, this is it.
This is kind of bad for us.
Huh? What do you mean?
If Adrian Andrews is summoned to court as a witness, it means that the trial will go on for another day.
One more day. Ah! If I don't get a verdict today, then my, Now then, we shall set Miss Andrews' testimony for tomorrow. What am I supposed to do? The judge is about to adjourn the court. Now then. Please, Your Honor, continue the trial. You must pass a verdict today. I can't do that. We cannot hear Miss Andrews.
I abhor wasting such valuable time.
Edgeworth.
Your Honor, I request that you please continue with today's trial.
But we cannot continue due to this unexpected development.
Unexpected development? I think you underestimate me, Your Honor.
What do you mean by that?
That Mr. Phoenix Wright would slave his way to subpoena Miss Adrian Andrews is all happening according to plan, even if Wright was a bit slow to catch on.
What? What is the meaning of your statement, Mr. Edgeworth?
Miss Adrian Andrews is currently waiting in the prosecution's lobby. She is the next witness.
Everything was planned out in advance by that man?
Somehow I knew there was no way Edgeworth would overlook Miss Andrews. Looks like this battle is far from over. Exactly.
Very well. We will call the next witness. However, before we proceed, we shall take a 10-minute recess. Please prepare your witness in that time, Mr. Edgeworth. Court will now take a 10-minute recess.
The dogs.
Yeah. Hang on. Okay. 2:14 p.m. Dude, I can't believe that Adrian... No way! Not cool and collected Adrian Andrews! She is your manager. It would have been very easy for her to pull this off. The only person who had easy access to the knife you used at dinner was, well, her. So after the ceremony during the break, huh? I was sleeping like a log the entire time. See, she could have also easily planted that blood-covered button in your hakama. Because she was the one that came to wake me up? Then, dude, you're saying it really was her? Yes, she is the real killer. She was the one who murdered Juan Corrida. But why? I thought she was buds with Juan. She had her own agenda. Her own agenda? What are you talking about? I'm sure you'll see by the time this trial's over. It'll be alright. I'll get you acquitted by the end of today. Get me a verdict that's refreshing like a spring breeze, okay, Mr. Lawyer Dude?
Phoenix, You think her motive is related to Celeste Impax's missing suicide note, right?
Yes. Miss Andrews depended on Miss Impax as her strength and reason to live. But then Miss Impax suddenly killed herself. Sounds like she left a suicide note, and the person thought to have hidden it.
Is Juan Corrida the victim of this murder?
And that's why I think that Miss Andrews got close to Mr. Corrida. All to get the suicide note back.
That sounds plausible. But one thing bothers me.
What?
Who was it that first told us about their relationship? Better stated, Miss Andrews' dependency issues with regards to Miss Impax.
It was Edgeworth.
It looks like he's still the one in command of this ship. Don't let your guard down yet.
March 22nd, 2:25 p.m. Court will now reconvene. Now then, Mr. Edgeworth. If you please.
Prosecution calls the witness subpoenaed by the court. Miss Adrian Andrews, the person who discovered the crime in Mr. Juan Corrida's room. What is your occupation? I am the manager of the defendant in this case, Mr. Matt Guard.
I see. Now then.
Before we begin, Your Honor, I have one request.
Oh, yes, sure. What is it?
I'm sure everyone in this room is wondering the same thing. And I would love to find out more about my relationship with the victim. After all, it was the topic of a certain weekly magazine recently.
No, I have no idea what you mean. I've never even heard of Gossipland. If the judge was ever a prosecution witness, he'd do all my work for me.
Anyway, I was wondering if you could please tell us about your relation to the victim. Yes, I was seeing Mr. Corrida. I was also aware of the rivalry that existed between Matt and Juan. But this was a private matter between Juan and myself.
So it was a fry and bait matter. Or was that bait and fry? Reminds me of fishing.
But I didn't kill him.
No
one is accusing you of that. I think there's someone who would beg to differ.
I think we all understand your relationship with the victim now, Miss Andrews.
Very well, then. Witness, please testify to the court about what happened when you discovered the murder that had taken place.
When I found the body.
It was time for the show to start, so I went to get Matt from his room. After that, I went to Juan's room, and there was his dead body. I was in shock. What I saw was, naturally, the exact same scene as in the crime scene photo. I felt as though I was about to faint, so I poured myself a glass of juice.
You poured yourself a glass of juice?
Yes. Sadly, I didn't remember not to touch things at the scene of a crime. And I disturbed the crime scene by moving this one thing. That is when the fingerprints on the wine glass were made, Your Honor.
I see. Well, Mr. Wright, you may cross-examine the witness.
Phoenix. She is one cool and collected customer, and she has the brains to match.
Yes, I know.
In order to catch a person like her, you have to avoid head-on confrontations. You should disrupt her pacing.
Disrupt her pacing?
She's the type of woman who is easily thrown off by things inconsistent with her thinking. So you have to attack when she least expects it. The instant you let up on your offense is the instant this trial is over. Understand?
When I found the body.
It was time for the show to start, so I went to get Matt from his room.
And what was Mr. Ungard doing at the time?
He was taking a nap. He was worn out from his mini-performance as the Nickel Samurai during the ceremony.
Mr. Ungard did say he was taking a nap. Then I guess you could say it could not have been taken out of his room, yes?
Excuse me? It? What are you? Right. I thought years of school would have taught you how to construct a sentence. If you can't make a sensible sentence with a subject, then I'll make one for you. Watch. Did you, Miss Andrews, remove Mr. Unguard's knife from his room? No. Subject, verb, object, right? Did you skip basic grammar? The witness may continue. After that, I went to Juan's room.
And why did you do that?
As a friendly gesture, Juan was to make an appearance with the other heroes.
So the show was supposed to be a show of friendship, huh? Is that the only reason?
I beg your pardon. What are you implying?
You had a certain goal in mind when you started to get close to him, correct? Or perhaps you had a more personal matter to discuss with the victim.
Sorry, but I didn't have any such intentions in mind at that time.
Can't get her to talk without a strong piece of evidence, I guess.
May we continue now? Witness, what did you see when you got to his room? And there was his dead body. I was in shock.
You were in shock?
What? Was I not supposed to be?
Miss Andrews is a very calculating person, and despite how close they were, I doubt she had romantic feelings for Mr. Corrida.
Anyone randomly stumbling upon a dead body would be in shock. And you can't seriously expect that a young beauty like her would not be shocked.
Somehow, I don't think beauty has anything to do with being shocked or not. I see.
What I saw was, naturally, the same exact scene as in the crime scene photo.
This is the photo you're referring to, correct?
Yes, the one with the knife lodged in his chest.
The guitar case was like this too?
Yes, it was open and empty, of course. And then, what did you do next, witness? I felt as though I was about to faint, so I poured myself a glass of juice.
Juice?
Yes, there was a bottle of tomato juice on the table, so I helped myself.
You didn't drink any of it, did you?
Huh?
There were no lip marks left on this wine glass to suggest that anyone drank from it.
I wasn't feeling terribly great, so I set the glass down, without drinking it.
Miss Andrews, I would like to confirm with you one more time. When you discovered the dead body of Juan Corrida, you were in great shock. And that's when you poured yourself the glass of juice, correct?
And what of it? My mind really was a complete blank at the time.
Your mind was a complete blank. I didn't think that was possible for you.
Aren't you rude today? I was so dazed that I made one careless mistake. That one thing.
What one thing?
Never mind. It's no big deal.
What was she starting to say just now? Miss Andrews, I'm convinced that, as you said, you made a mistake at the scene of the crime. What I really want to know is what this mistake was.
Actually, so would I. I'm sorry, it's kind of embarrassing. When I set the glass down on the dresser, I accidentally knocked the flower vase over.
Flower vase? Are you talking about the one on the floor in the crime scene? Just mess of glass shards.
It was originally on top of the dresser, but when I bumped into it with my elbow, it fell onto the guitar case. Why did you withhold such an important piece of information? I'm sorry. I thought that since the crime scene was already in disarray, that people would simply assume the vase was just another part of the mess.
It looks like yet another fact has come to light here. Please add this and anything else you have to reveal to your testimony.
I'm sorry, but I have nothing more to add. I didn't touch anything else. I was the one who knocked the flower vase over where it fell onto the guitar case.
What kind of flower vase was it?
It was a glass vase, and it was fairly big and heavy. I thought I would try to take Juan's pulse, so I set the glass I was holding down on the dresser, and that's when my elbow accidentally hit the vase.
That's odd. I thought she was always in total control of herself.
That's what she would like people to think. Always be mindful of the gap between your perception and reality. It doesn't sound like there's any glaring contradictions in her testimony just now. I warned you earlier that she would not crack so easily. The only way to make her is to keep on the offensive and not let up. The only way you're going to catch her is with some very strong, decisive evidence. I have to find something. I just have to. For Maya's sake. You testify that you knocked the flower vase over. Is this correct? Yes. And are you sure it fell onto the guitar case? Is there some problem with what I said? Not some problem. It's a major problem. It's true that the top of the guitar case was wet with water. However, that's exactly what is so strange. Miss Andrews, you testified that the vase fell onto the guitar case. However, if that was true, the case would have gotten wet on the inside, not the outside. That's very true. Furthermore, there is one other strange thing about this guitar case. And what is that? Let's take another look at the crime scene photo. The remains of the vase are scattered on the floor. What is wrong with that? If the guitar case was opened when the vase fell, the glass shards would be inside, not outside the case. What is your point, Wright? That the case was closed at the time that the vase was knocked over? Is that all? No, think back to what Miss Andrews testified to. She said that other than the vase, she didn't touch anything else. Yes, that's right. She did implicitly say she didn't touch the guitar. She did implicitly say she didn't touch the guitar case. But this whole matter with the guitar case is a dead end. The bright red guitar was found at the studio. It has no bearing on the case at all. That may very well be. However, the empty guitar case does seem to have no relation to this case, doesn't it? Seems that there is no deeper meaning to the guitar case. Well, Mr. Wright, do you think we need to hear more details about the guitar case? The empty guitar case. I believe this is a crucial piece of the puzzle. I can't believe anyone would reach for straws like this. But it is you. I can't believe I'm doing this either. Alright, I'll follow along. For now. Miss Andrews, please testify to the court about the guitar case. Yes, Your Honor. The guitar case. I don't remember too clearly because I was a bit dazed. I suppose I must have opened the guitar case after I knocked the vase over. It's not a big deal though, right? The case was empty after all. As for why I opened the case, even I don't know.
Looks like this really wasn't a very important point.
This wastefulness is such a familiar feeling by now that it's almost comforting.
Anyway, let's just go ahead and start the cross-examination.
Using anyway to change the topic. A convenient escape for a weak man.
The guitar case.
I don't remember too clearly because I was a bit dazed.
During your testimony just now, did you remember those events clearly in your mind?
Well, you see...
Are you sure you are the one who opened the guitar case?
She's waiting for someone to tell her if she should answer or not.
Sounds like her dependent side is taking over. Well, Miss Andrews.
Yes, it was me. I suppose I must have opened the guitar case after I knocked the vase over.
So, you opened the guitar case then?
Yes, well, maybe.
Why did you open the guitar case?
Huh?
Mr. Korida's dead body was right there in front of you, wasn't it? I would think that the first thing you would do is call for help, not open a guitar case.
As the witness has said multiple times, when she found the dead body, she was dazed. Maybe I was curious to know if the bright red guitar was all right or not. I thought maybe the criminal took it.
Why would she care about the bright red guitar?
But getting back on topic. It's not a big deal though, right? The case was empty after all.
Was it really empty? I was just wondering if maybe when you opened the case, the guitar was still inside.
How long have you been a lawyer, Mr. Wright? Have a little professionalism. The bright red guitar was found at the studio. These trials would be over in half the time if you would just pay attention.
Yes, pay more attention, Mr. Wright. Sorry.
As for why I opened the case, even I don't know.
Was that because you were shocked and dazed at discovering the victim's body?
Yes, that's probably it.
I'm not going to get anywhere if I continue pressing her like this. The only way to make her talk is with evidence. I guess I should give it a try.
Come on, Phoenix. We can't afford to let up on her now.
I wasn't planning on letting up, but...
She's at her weakest now, so this is our chance.
Yeah, if we had a weapon to hit her with.
I'm sure a weapon is hiding somewhere in the court record, waiting to be found.
Even I don't know. Huh, I'm about to spill your past under confidence. Damn it, that's incorrect. As for why I opened the case... Well, shoot.
Bum bum.
I feel like it's this. Because everything else is too vague. Must have opened the guitar case after I knocked the vase over. From what we know, that is true. There's some water, but only on the top of the lid. Oh, wait a minute. It only has Corrida's fingerprints. Maybe that's it? The fact that it only has Corrida's fingerprints? Okay. There's no way you were the one who opened the guitar case.
Why would you say that?
It's elementary, my dear. Because the only fingerprints on this guitar case are those of the victim.
Oh.
What is it, Miss Andrews?
You shouldn't assume that I must have left... You shouldn't assume that I must have left prints just because I touched the case.
What do you mean?
What if I were to tell you that I was wearing gloves at the time?
Gloves? But why would you be wearing gloves at the time?
It was the night of the awards ceremony. So of course I dressed up for the occasion. Yes, now I remember. I'm almost sure I was wearing a pair of thin gloves.
I see. Well, Mr. Wright, it seems the witness was wearing gloves at the scene of the crime. You were wearing gloves? Isn't that a little strange?
Why is that strange? Do you have something that would prove I was not wearing gloves at the time?
I have your proof right here. This wine glass.
The wine glass?
You left your fingerprints very clearly on this wine glass. Even if you took your gloves off when you poured yourself this glass of juice, wouldn't you think it was just a little strange that you put your gloves back on just to open the guitar case?
Glasses. I have another pair.
Order! Order! Order!
Looks like he hit the nail on the head this time.
What do you mean?
I believe this guitar case plays a very important role here.
But it's just an empty case.
I wonder if it really was empty, though.
But the guitar, the bright red guitar was at the studio.
Phoenix, drop all your presumptions. What was in the guitar case was not the bright red guitar.
You don't mean it was a bright white guitar? Wait, that's not right either. I admit it would be unnatural for someone to do that. So the witness was not wearing gloves, despite the fact that on the case...
Your Honor, this is obviously the defense's usual misdirection tactic at work. Steer the court towards an unrelated topic and lull us all into his misguided...
No, Your Honor. Please recall that Miss Andrews had testified that the vase fell onto the guitar case, which means that the case was closed when the crime took place. However, it is wide open in this photo on the crime scene. I'm sure this guitar case has some relation to the murder.
If you are so sure, Wright, then I'm sure you can somehow substantiate your outrageous claim, correct? Please enlighten us as to why that guitar case has anything at all to do with this murder.
Can you do that, Mr. Wright?
Well...
Let's suppose for a second that the bright red guitar case was not the only thing that could have been in the case. The bright red guitar not being the only thing. You don't mean to suggest a bright black guitar was in the case?
So, you intend to push your theory that the case was not empty? Is that it, right?
I wouldn't say something I didn't intend to prove.
Deflate that head of yours. You haven't proven anything yet. Now then, let's have it. What was inside the case at the time of the murder? And why would something like that be inside a guitar case? Let alone this one.
Why, Mr. Wright? Why? Well, I just thought it might have been possible.
I have a suggestion. Why don't you put that in the void where your brain is supposed to be?
Yes, never bring it out again. Damn it.
Can a foolish fool... Can a foolishly foolish fool get some love? You still think you can prove your theory? The guitar case was not empty at the time of the murder. I wouldn't say... Deflate that ego. What was inside the case at the time of the murder?
Maybe it's this. Seems like the Nickel Samurai is to confess something after the show. So if it's not the suicide note yet... Oh... This is a photograph? Yes, but what is important is what is in that photograph, Your Honor. You're in this picture. It doesn't take a genius to see what I mean. What I'm proposing is... Inside the guitar case was the Nickel Samurai, the hero's very own costume.
What?
Mr. Wright, explain yourself.
Right. Are you saying that the witness opened the guitar case to take out a costume? What insane point would there be to do something like that?
That insane point would be to wear the costume, of course. Miss Andrews put it on to hide her identity so she could make her escape. After all, you couldn't let anyone see you leave, could you, Miss Andrews?
I refuse to accept your theory. Do you have anything to support such a preposterous idea?
Just outside the door was an investigative photographer who was starving for a big scoop. And in the end, she managed to get this shot, correct? You mean this photo? Order! Order! Looks like we've wandered into quite another mess again, haven't we?
Nice job, Phoenix.
Well, you know my strategy. Speak first, think later. So the real murderer was hiding inside a costume.
Wait a second, Your Honor. The Nickel Samurai's costume would have been Mr. Matt on guard's. Why would something of the defendant's be in the victim's room? And inside the guitar case of all places?
True. That is a little baffling. Mr. Wright, the court would like to hear your thoughts. What was this Nickel Samurai costume doing inside the guitar case? It couldn't have been stolen from on guard, because he still had the costume on him. So it must have been a spare. Mr. On guard did not take his costume off during the break period. In that case, the costume we were talking about was a spare one.
What?
Then, are you saying that on the night of the murder, there were 2 Nickel Samurai costumes at the Gatewater Hotel? Yes, that is what I'm saying. And how do you explain the costume that was inside the guitar case?
It would mean that the victim himself had brought this spare to the ceremony on purpose.
But why? The victim, Mr. Korda, was the Gemin Ninja. Why would he secretly bring the Nickel Samurai's spare costume with him? What would be the reason behind such a peculiar act?
Therein lies the sticking point. What are you mumbling to yourself about now? Have you just been rambling all this time without any sense of inner monologue?
Huh? No, I just... Mr. Wright, please explain yourself. Why do you think the victim had the Steel Samurai's spare costume?
Phoenix, are you sure you can explain this one? Think carefully before you answer, and then answer with gusto. I believe in you.
I don't know how much punishment they're going to give me, so I'm going to save. Alright, this is what I think. The reason the victim brought the Nickel Samurai spare costume to the hotel was... What is this? On the night of the murder, after the stage show, the Nickel Samurai was going to hold a special press conference. A press conference? Yes, the Nickel Samurai was supposed to confess something at this conference.
I heard about this as well. For once, you're not making something up, right?
But what struck me as strange was that Mr. Ungard himself said he had no idea he was supposed to be holding a press conference that night. But how can that be? The way I see it, that can only mean one thing. The conference was set up by none other than the victim, Mr. Juan Corda himself. The victim? Yes. The spare Nickel Samurai costume was prepared for that very conference. Mr. Corda was going to hold the press conference as the Nickel Samurai. He was going to dress up as the Nickel Samurai and hold a conference? But why would the victim do such a thing? That's something I don't quite know yet. However, what I am concerned with right now is what he intended to reveal at that conference.
The Nickel Samurai was going to confess something. And by confess, I'd wager he was going to reveal something about himself.
Which means that Juan Corda, posing as the Nickel Samurai, was going to speak about Madame Guard. Yes, I guess that it is what it would mean.
But if that's the case, that's not a confession. That's public disclosure.
Miss Andrews.
I can see why you are pros at what you do.
Pardon me?
Yes, just as you say, the press conference was set up by Juan.
Miss Andrews, please offer us an explanation for this.
I was the one who asked to help set it up. I was the one he asked to help set it up. And the person who prepared the second costume for him, that was also me.
You!
Juan had bet everything on the Jammin' Ninja this year. And if he lost the Grand Prix, he was going to make sure Matt was going down with him. That's what he thought anyway.
He was going to ruin him, huh?
It looked like somehow Juan had in his hands a secret so powerful that it would destroy Matt's acting career had it been revealed.
What? And do you know what the secret of Mr. Unguard's is, Miss Andrews?
That's something only Juan knew. I don't know what it is.
Ah, I see.
I've probably been coming off quite suspicious to everyone. But that's to be expected. I've been trying to protect Matt, after all.
Protect Mr. Unguard? And yet again, another strange bit of truth comes to light, it seems. Miss Andrews, if you could, please tell us the truth about your behavior.
Yes, Your Honor. I understand.
Protecting Matt.
From the moment I saw the crime scene, I had a feeling that Matt was the murderer. Matt had to kill Juan no matter what. And he didn't have an alibi for what he was doing at the time of the murder. My thoughts were confirmed by the evidence, of course, the button and the knife. But I'm Matt's manager, so I felt that I had to protect him.
This does account for everything.
Well, I am the logical type. We're finally seeing her true self. She is more nervous than a scared rabbit.
If the defense can find no fault with his testimony, I am ready to make a ruling. Please keep that in mind as you cross-examine Mr. Wright. Looks like somehow everything has swung to the opposite end of the scale again. That just means I have to put my weight into this and turn her logic upside down. Protecting Matt.
From the moment I saw the crime scene, I had a feeling that Matt was the murderer.
Would you say that was your intuition speaking to you?
Don't confuse my methods of reasoning with your own. If you want to prove that someone did something, you need 3 things.
3 things?
A motive, an opportunity to commit the crime, and finally, decisive evidence. If you think these 3 things through, the answer becomes quite clear. You should have already known that, Phoenix.
They didn't teach that to us in school. At least, not from what I remember.
May I continue now? Matt had to kill Juan no matter what.
Would you say this need came from the press conference?
Yes. Do you know why Juan chose that event and that hotel for the conference? Because that was when he could cause the most damage to the public's beloved Matt Unguard.
And you knew of this plan, didn't you, Miss Andrews?
Yes, because I was the one who set up the conference and prepared the costume.
But I'm sure Mr. Unguard himself didn't know anything about the press conference.
Oh, really? Can you show me any proof that he didn't know about the press conference?
Anyway, the important thing here is that this information was not in your testimony. Yes, I agree. Miss Andrews, please correct your testimony if you please.
Gasping at straws now, are we, Mr. Wright? I know what his motive was, but I don't have any way to prove I'm right.
Has Mr. Unguard done anything to hurt or betray you personally?
Why do you ask?
You were the one who helped Mr. Corda with his press conference. And that event was supposed to bring down Mr. Unguard. Yet you still helped out.
The person on trial right now is Mr. Unguard, right? What the witness was thinking, helping the victim with his plan, is none of our concern. In any case, this means the defendant had a motive to kill.
Why do I keep doing this to myself?
And he didn't have an alibi for what he was doing at the time of the murder.
But didn't you already testify earlier that Mr. Ungard was taking a nap in his room? Are you telling me now that that too was a lie so you can cover for Mr. Ungard?
I'm not telling you anything of the sort. When I went to get him for the show, he honestly was sleeping. However, as to whether he was sleeping the entire time, that I cannot say. I was too busy setting up the stage at the time.
I keep trying, but I can find no flaws with what Miss Andrews has said. I can't say the same for some people here in this courtroom, however. Judge is glaring straight at Mia.
He's glaring at you, smart guy. My thoughts were confirmed by the evidence, of course. The button and the knife.
You can hardly call the knife decisive evidence. The fingerprints on the knife could very well be a clever camouflage.
Then, what about the button?
The button?
It's clearly from the crime scene that the victim and his murderer fought. And during the fight, the killer ripped the button from the Jammin' Ninja's costume.
You're talking about this button, correct?
That button was found in the pleats of Matt's Hakama, isn't that correct? I would think that makes it very decisive evidence.
Looks like you were outfoxed again, Mr. Wright. Anyway, the knife doesn't prove a thing. Please fix your testimony.
I can't stand the sight of a man who can't gracefully accept his defeat.
Thank goodness Mia can still look at me.
With an icy stare, yes.
Miss Andrews, for Mr. Wright's sake, please add this information to your testimony.
That button was torn off of Juan during his fight with Matt.
How do you know that?
When the ends of the thread of the button and the costume were matched up, they were found to fit together perfectly. Or so I heard.
I've heard that one before too. But why would Miss Andrews know about this case down to such a fine detail?
Don't look at me like that. Just because I'm prepared and you are not.
And I thought I had her this time for sure. If there's anything to trip her up on, it has to be here. But where and what?
But I'm Matt's manager, so I felt I had to protect him.
But what you really did was stab the guy in the back, didn't you? And at the worst possible time.
Who's to say she really stabbed the guy in the back, as you put it?
This witness could have disclosed things about Mr. Ungard at any time. Why, then, would she wait until there was a large audience before doing so? It's the same reason why Mr. Corda planned such an elaborate conference. Miss Andrews wanted to cause Mr. Ungard as much damage as she possibly could. This witness bears ill will towards the defendant.
This isn't the Phoenix Wright Wax Philosophical Power Hour. And please stop slandering the witness.
As expected, Miss Andrews' testimony seems pretty solid.
Really? Because to me it sounded a bit wishy-washy.
Wishy-washy? Well, I guess we'll see if I press a little more.
You should know this by now. But you'll need strong, decisive evidence to make her talk.
Got it, Chief. I'm gonna pin you down this time, Miss Andrews. So it's one of the pieces. That button was torn off of Juan during his fight with Matt. I don't know what his... I know what his motive was, but I don't have any way to prove I'm right. Wait a minute. He was strangled with a scarf, then stabbed with a knife. Button was torn off of one during his fight with Matt. It couldn't have been during the fight, because he was strangled first, slumps down in chair, and then they stab him, causing blood to be on the button. Means that it couldn't have happened during the fight, because the fight ended with strangulation, not with stabbing. Is it this? Do I show this? Do I show this? Do I show this? Okay. This is the victim's autopsy report. It clearly states that the cause of death was strangulation by a scarf. Strangulation? The knife stab to the victim was done after the victim had already died. And what does that mean? Let's examine the evidence. This button has the victim's blood on it, which would mean that it was ripped off of the costume when? After the knife was stabbed into the victim. Exactly. Which means it is impossible that this button was torn off during the victim's final struggle, because the victim was strangled to death in that fight. Oh. That's right, Miss Andrews. There is no way this button was ripped off during the struggle. This button was consciously pulled off of the victim's already dead body. Order! Order! What is the meaning? What is the meaning of this, Wright? So what if the button was torn off the body after the victim had already died? What does that change? Let me ask you one simple question, Mr. Edgeworth. Why was the button torn off? What purpose did that serve? What purpose? We now know this button was not torn off during the fight. So the murderer took the time and effort to purposely rip this from the victim's body. That would mean the murderer had something in mind, wouldn't it? Mr. Wright, does this mean you know what the murderer wanted to do with the button? What was it? There is only one logical reason for doing something like this. It was to pin the crime on Mr. Ungard. There is no way that anyone would put a bloody button in their own pants. That's right. Mr. Ungard was set up. By the real killer, of course. And the real murderer is? Well, Mr. Wright, who in the world is the real killer, then? Finally. Can't believe I managed to bring this trial all the way to this point. Phoenix, you can't let your guard down yet. Not until the very end. The real killer, the person who planned to frame Mr. Ungard, is... Miss Adrian Andrews. I choose you. You are Mr. Corrida's killer.
What?
Order! 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 Mr. Wright! This is a very grave matter. Do you have any evidence that supports your charge? Any evidence? All of the evidence points to Miss Andrews.
How preposterous! You can't stick any of that on me.
I can't, can I? Would you care to test me?
Then what about this knife?
The knife was used to stab the victim after he had already been strangled to death. It was used to throw suspicion onto Mr. Ungard, naturally. A knife covered in the defendant's fingerprints could only be taken from his room. And the only one who had dinner with him and knew which knife to take was you.
Then, what about the button that was found in Matt's Akama?
This button was removed from the victim's body after he had already died. The only people who could have done so were the person who found his body or the killer. However, if Mr. Ungard was the real killer, there is no way he would have put such incriminating evidence on his own Hakama.
Oh.
The only person who could have put this button into Mr. Ungard's Hakama is the person who went to wake him up from his nap, which is you yet again, Miss Andrews.
I see. What about the empty guitar case?
That is also another piece of evidence that incriminates Miss Andrews. That costume was used to hide the real killer's identity as they fled the crime scene. Now, who could have known that there was just such a costume inside the guitar case? It could only have been the person who prepared the costume for the victim. And that person is you, Miss Adrian Andrews.
No,
But Miss Andrews' fingerprints were nowhere to be found on the guitar case. And it was you who proved that she was not wearing gloves at the time.
That's right.
That's because she did not intend on leaving any prints. If anyone had found out that she had touched the case, they would have asked her why. So to avoid leaving any prints, she used a towel or something else to open it. But the glass of tomato juice is a different story. Miss Andrews purposely left her fingerprints on the glass to show that, yes, indeed, he was the classic dazed discoverer of the dead body.
Ah.
And to top it all off, there's this photo. A photo of the killer as they exited the scene of the crime. No reasonable person on Earth can believe this nickel samurai is Mr. Ungard. He would be much too short for his own costume if it was. Speaking of how tall people are, Miss Andrews, you're also kind of short in stature, are you not?
please, stop.
Well, how about it, Miss Andrews? I've got her this time.
Miss Andrews.
I refuse to testify.
What was that?
There's a law. It says I can't be forced to testify about something if it can incriminate me.
Well, yes. You are absolutely correct, Miss Andrews. The law does provide us with a way to avoid self-incrimination, by allowing a witness to not testify if the testimony can cause damage to themselves.
What? Pleading the fifth is not something most people would think to do on the spot. Actually, thinking back to yesterday in Mr. Ungard's room. Adrian Andrews.
Yes? Think hard about what we just discussed. Understood? All right.
That's it. That's when Franziska planted this idea into her head. She must have told Miss Andrews not to testify if things looked bad.
You did a good job proving everything up to this point, Phoenix. But there is still one thing you haven't done.
Something I haven't done?
Huh. What's wrong, Wright? Are you finished already? Run out of evidence?
What is so humorous, Mr. Edgeworth?
I'm sure you realize this as well, Your Honor. But everything the good lawyer here has proven up to this point is meaningless.
What?
Everything you have proven is circumstantial.
Circumstantial?
Yes, circumstantial. You have yet to provide a single piece of definitive proof. Proof that Miss Andrews did in fact harbor a wish to murder Mr. Korodai.
Where's Korda?
Miss Andrews, did you want to kill Mr. Korda?
I believe this may lead to me incriminating myself, so I will abstain from answering.
But, Miss Andrews, if you do that, it would be the same as admitting your guilt, don't you think?
Maybe so, or maybe not. There is nothing to prove it. There is nothing to prove it either way. Besides, you don't even know what crime I would be guilty of due to my silence.
No, she's taking that defiant attitude again. Mia, what should we do?
Somehow, we've landed in the worst possible situation.
I think we have reached a certain conclusion at this point in time. Miss Adrian Andrews has refused to testify, and the defense's theory that she is the actual murderer has not been fully substantiated with solid definitive proof.
That's not true.
In this situation, there is only one thing this court can do, and that is to declare a recess.
Recess?
I request that both the prosecution and the defense look further into this matter, and at tomorrow's trial...
Tomorrow? We don't have a tomorrow. If we don't get a not guilty verdict today, then... Please wait, Your Honor. That's not necessary. The trial. Please continue the trial. What are you sweating for? Your client is getting one more day to live, isn't he? That's not it. This isn't about that. Edgeworth, I know you know who the real killer is. Please, let the trial continue. If I don't get the verdict, then Maya...
But it's impossible to continue as long as the witness refuses to testify. Now then, this court is...
It is not impossible for this trial to continue.
Mr. Edgeworth, what are you...
It's true, Miss Andrews holds the right against self-incrimination. However, if the topic of conversation were something unrelated to whatever she may be guilty of, then she has no right to withhold testimony.
Yes, that is very true, but...
Actually, there is one little thing that I'm curious about. Miss Andrews, when you found the victim's dead body, you poured yourself a glass of juice. Yes, and? I can't help but think how unnatural that is. Usually, when one finds a body, they are shaken up, not stirring a glass of juice. Though my actions were unusual, but I've already... Before you speak, I want to state that if you have a reason behind your actions, I would like you to testify to that effect. Testify? Your Honor, I would like to request that the witness testify again as to what happened when she first discovered the victim's body. Whatever we find out in this testimony should in no way implicate the witness. I don't know what it is about Edgeworth today, but I can't get a good read off of him. Is he friend or foe? I just don't know.
Court acknowledges the prosecution's request. Mr. Andrews, if you please.
When I found the body. That glass of juice. I didn't really pour it for myself. I was surprised when I walked into the room and saw it in that messy state. Antoine, he was sitting slumped over and tired looking in the corner. When I saw him sitting like that, the thought that he was dead didn't cross my mind. To be honest, I thought he had just fainted or something, so I went to pour him some juice. When I realized that he was dead, that's when I knocked the flower vase over.
So you poured that glass of juice for the victim. Why didn't you say so in your earlier testimony?
I didn't think I needed to include something so trivial. Phoenix, please be careful here. If you can't find anything wrong with this testimony, then there's nothing left. I know. Edgeworth, what the heck is going on in that brain of yours?
Now then, Mr. Wright, you may begin your cross-examination.
When I found the body. That glass of juice, I didn't really pour it for myself. But there wasn't anyone else in the room, right? Of course not.
Then, who did you pour it for?
Mr. Wright, there is a rhyme and reason for everything. Can you just wait a little longer for it to be revealed to you? In other words, Wright, be quiet and listen. Precisely. I couldn't have said it better myself. I was surprised when I walked into the room and saw it in that messy state. So, it was a mess? Are you sure it wasn't messy because of your fight with Mr. Corrida? I understand your frustrations at not being able to prove your theory. However, before you go accusing people of crimes, go find yourself some evidence. Then, what did you see next, witness? Antoine. He was sitting slumped over and tired looking in the corner. slumped over.
Yes, he was just sitting there with his head tilted forward, eyes closed. He really looked like he was sleeping.
Is it just me, or did that right there sound a little odd?
When I saw him sitting like that, the thought that he was dead didn't cross my mind.
Then what did cross your mind?
I thought maybe he had smashed something up in anger because he lost the Grand Prix, and then felt tired after his rampage, so he decided to take a nap. Anyway, that's what I thought.
I see. So you didn't think he was dead at all?
To be honest, I thought he had just fainted or something, so I went to pour him some juice.
You thought he fainted?
I thought he was sleeping at first, but then the room was in such a messy state. I thought maybe he had gotten into a fight with someone. And that's when you went to pour the glass of juice. Yes, he always has a hard time waking up. So Juan always has a glass of tomato juice to drink.
I see. And after that, what happened next?
When I realized that he was dead, that's when I knocked the flower vase over.
How did you come to realize that he was, in fact, dead?
I shook him over and over, but I never got a response. So I set the glass down on the dresser and tried to take his pulse. I was shocked and staggered backwards. I knocked the flower vase over, so that's what happened. Yes. This is what it all comes down to.
Huh?
This is the absolute end for both sides, and Adrian is letting her guard down. Phoenix, now is our best chance yet to kill the prosecution's case.
Isn't that a bit harsh? Miss Andrews, will you tell us the truth this time? Damn, really? He has a fucking knife in his chest? Or maybe you want me to see the crime scene photo. If they wanted me to show the crime scene photo, I'm gonna be mad, because my knife should have worked. The knife should have worked as well. The knife should have worked as well. It should have. It should have. It should have worked as well. It should have. So you honestly didn't think he was dead when you found him?
No, not at all.
Even though this is what you saw when you discovered the body? Ah!
What is the meaning of this?
Isn't it obvious, Your Honor? There is a knife sticking straight out of Mr. Corda's chest. Anyone who saw this scene would have immediately thought that there was a dead man.
Well, you see...
I doubt a single person in the world would mistake this for someone who fainted, and then so nonchalantly go pour something to drink.
Your point is?
Miss Andrews, your testimony just now, it was all one giant lie. Ah! And your lie has proven one thing very clear. That you are the real killer.
It looks like the defense has somehow brought the ugly truth to light. The defendant, Mr. Matt Ungard, is not guilty after all.
But that's impossible. You're wrong.
Miss Andrews, try to have some composure.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me, I tell you. It was Matt. I swear it. He's the one who killed Juan.
But you were the one who refused to testify, and your reason for not doing so was that you might end up incriminating yourself.
That's because...
Miss Andrews, I will give you one last chance. What exactly are you hiding that may incriminate you?
I refuse to testify.
Then there is no need for this court to continue any further. Mr. Matt Ungard's innocence has been clearly demonstrated.
Is it over?
Have we found the truth at last? What's wrong, Phoenix?
Usually. Well, Usually the real killer confesses his or her guilt. And now that I think about it, this is the first time someone hasn't.
Now then, I would like to hand down my verdict for Mr. Matt on guard.
Your Honor, the prosecution feels that it would be premature to pass down a verdict at this time.
What?
The reason is quite simple. This witness has yet to speak the absolute real truth.
The absolute real truth? What are you...
Witness, don't you understand yet? Huh? I don't know who planted this silly idea in your head, but as long as you protect yourself through your silence, Matt on guard will go free, and in his place, you will become the guilty party. That's a lie. I don't believe you. What? I was told if I spoke, then it would be all over, and Matt would never be declared guilty. What in the world is she talking about? Has she lost it? I can't speak about it. I'm too scared. It's Franziska von Karma. Huh? Don't you remember, Phoenix? Miss Andrews lives by gripping tightly onto the words of another, because she doesn't have the strength to believe in herself. Then, right now, Miss Andrews is... Yesterday, she was tossed a lifesaver by Miss von Karma. Don't say a word, no matter what happens. If you do, Matt on guard will be acquitted. Miss Andrews undyingly believes in those words right now, and is clinging on to them. Then what should we do? This is the first time I've ever come across anything like this. But Miss Andrews has to be the killer, right? All we have to do now is get our not guilty. That is my only priority. It wasn't me. I'm begging you, please believe me. I didn't kill Juan. Help. Please. Someone help me.
Mr. Wright. Yes, Your Honor. The court can't continue on like this. Therefore, I'd like to hear what you intend to do.
What I intend to do? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to say? Right. I suggest you think very carefully about this. Think about what this witness did and what she did not do. And think about who is the real mastermind behind this crime. Who's the real mastermind? Isn't that obvious? There's no one else it could be except the woman crying over there. Right? Come now. What will you do? What kind of man are you, Mr. Phoenix Wright? I have to win a complete acquittal today. There's no way around that. But I can't bring myself to do it like this. Not when she's making a face like that. Miss Andrews, I would like to know what you're really hiding.
Mr. Wright, are you sure you know what you're doing?
Sure, Mr. On Guard would get an acquittal, but in his place, you would be found guilty. Is this how you really want this trial to end? Be quiet. How dare you? You're trying to trick me.
That's enough. I commend you for trying, Mr. Edgeworth. However, it's clear the defense's theory is the truth.
You're wrong. What a shame. I had hoped things wouldn't come to this. However...
What is it, Mr. Edgeworth?
Miss Andrews, since you absolutely refuse to testify, it falls on my shoulders to disclose this to the court. Stop!
Mr. Edgeworth!
This witness, how should I put this? She has an illness. What? Because of this illness, she has tried to commit suicide in the past. Stop! Please stop! No matter how much you want to hide it, it's no use. I have the evidence right here. That's... That's the second part of the suicide report. The attempted suicide report.
What will you do now, witness? You know what I'm about to do, don't you? I will now reveal to the court the true nature of the pitiful woman known as Adrian Andrews.
The secret of her dependent nature. Having other people know about it scares her more than anything else in the world.
Please, please stop! I beg you, if people find out, I'll...
If you're going to say you would choose death, that is of no concern to me. Edgeworth, how can you be so cold? However, before you die, I will pull the truth from your still breathing lips, no matter what I have to do. So, will you tell the court yourself, or shall I? Everything is fine with me.
I'll talk, but please, help me. Nothing matters anymore.
My crime.
When I first saw him, I really thought he had fainted. Honest. When I realized he was dead, that's when I formulated my plan. Once I made sure there was no one in the hall, I made a dash back to Matt's room. And then, I stabbed Juan's dead body with a knife and ripped off the button. Just when I finished and was returning to Matt's room, I had a bit of an inconvenience. And that's why I ended up using the Nickel Samurai costume.
Stabbed the body with the knife. But why would you do that?
Isn't it obvious? To pin the blame on a certain person. A certain cowardly man.
What do you mean by all of this?
It might take this court a little while to understand, but... this is the truth. The real killer is Matt. That scumbag of a man. I'll never forgive him. He's trying to escape his guilt again, just like last time.
Last time?
So, Miss Andrews stabbed the victim, Juan Corrida, in the chest with the knife. However, she didn't do it with murder in mind. She did it with the intent of framing Matt on guard for the murder. And this is her crime.
What? How is this possible? I mean, wasn't Miss Andrews supposed to be the real murderer?
Mr. Wright, please get over your shock and commence the cross-examination.
My crime.
When I first saw him, I really thought he had fainted. Honest.
But you could tell from the state the room was in that there must have been a fight. Are you telling the truth when you say you did not know he was dead?
He had a scarf tied around his neck. But that scarf is part of the Jammin' Ninja's costume, so I didn't think anything about it was strange. His head was also tilted down a bit, so I couldn't see his face that well. That's why I thought I'd wake him up, and went to pour the juice. When I realized he was dead, that's when I formulated my plan.
What is this plan you had?
I knew right away the murderer was Matt. I knew because Juan, he was going to expose as Matt's weak point to the world. So Matt did this to stop Juan and silence him for good. That's when I thought I should forge some evidence and pin this crime on Matt.
So the forged pieces of evidence were the knife and the button.
The first thing that came to mind was to plant the knife. Once I made sure there was no one in the hallway, I made a dash back to Matt's room.
That was so you could get the knife, correct?
The knife Matt used at dinner had his fingerprints all over it. I thought if I used that, then the police would certainly turn their eyes towards him. Matt was napping with his costume on at the time. I slipped in, took the knife, and returned to the scene of the crime. And then I stabbed Juan's dead body with the knife and ripped off the button.
So you were the one that stabbed the victim with that knife?
It gives me goosebumps to think about it now. What a horrible thing I did. But at the time, I couldn't control my own body. It moved on its own. Then, when I stabbed Juan's dead body, I suddenly realized something. If I used the button somehow, I could make Matt look even more suspect. So you thought to rip one of the buttons off and then plant it in Mr. Ungard's Hakama? Yes, that's what I had planned to do. But things never go that smoothly, do they? Just when I finished and was returning to Matt's room, I had a bit of an inconvenience.
An inconvenience?
There was a woman with a camera at the ready, loitering in the hallway.
I'm willing to bet my spikes it was Lotta.
There was also a woman with a ray gun at the ready, pacing back and forth.
That's Miss Oldbag for you.
I had already been caught and made into a big scoop for a certain weekly tabloid once, so I couldn't very well go out looking like myself and get caught again. And that's why I ended up using the Nickel Samurai costume.
You were the one who prepared that costume, weren't you?
Yes, I took it from Global Studios. I also put it into Juan's guitar case the day before the awards ceremony. You did this in preparation for the press conference, correct? Yes, Juan wanted to wear that costume and hold a press conference in it. He was going to disclose Matt's big secret there.
And what is this secret?
That, I don't know. Anyway, I thought that if I were to leave Juan's room in the Nickel Samurai costume, then people would think that Matt was the real murderer. I was very careful not to leave any fingerprints when I opened the guitar case. I absolutely did not want anyone to know about the costume.
I think we've heard enough. So after that, you went back to Mr. Ungard's room and planted the button.
Into Matt's Hakama, yes. After that, I folded up the costume I was wearing and put it into a bag. I then snuck it out of the hotel and got rid of it.
My word, what does all this mean?
Mr. Edgeworth, is it? The real criminal is Matt Ungard. Yesterday, that woman prosecutor sat me down for a talk.
Francisca, huh?
She said that I should under no circumstances confess to what I had done. That if I just kept quiet, then Matt would be found guilty for sure. I had no choice but to believe in her words.
What this witness has done is clearly unlawful. However, as long as her testimony stands, we can be certain she is not the real killer.
Wait, Your Honor! The defense still...
Right. It's pointless. At this point in time, it is not possible to indict Miss Andrews on anything.
Yes, exactly. There isn't a single piece of evidence that points to her as the murderer. Cross-examination of this witness is over. So is today's trial. You couldn't establish that the witness was the culprit. Please let it go, Mr. Wright.
But...
Mr. Edgeworth, please place Miss Andrews under arrest for further questioning.
Understood, Your Honor. The prosecution will arrange for her detention immediately.
That is all. Court is adjourned for today.
Today's trial. It's over. And I didn't win an acquittal.
Witness, would you mind if I asked you something?
Edgeworth?
What is it? Before you leave court today, I wondered if I might look at one thing. The card in your hand. It's had my interest for quite some time now. What exactly is it? Oh, this? Mr. Wright also asked about this. Although I didn't remember at the time you asked me about it, Mr. Wright. I remembered just now. I found this in the room on that day.
The room?
That day? Yes. I found this card when I discovered Juan's body. It was lying there right next to him. You found that card next to the victim's body? I suppose it must have unconsciously slipped into my pocket. But it's not as if this card has any relevance to Juan's murder, right? Yeah, I guess not. But it's still a strange card if you ask me. But as far as a clue to this case, I don't see why... Witness that card. Give it to me. Hurry. Edgeworth? Do you have any idea what you have stupidly yet inadvertently done? This. I can't believe you hid this from me all this time. I didn't mean to. What is this all about? I've never seen Edgeworth so emotional before. That card. What in the world is it? And what does it mean? To be continued. Damn, that was a long fucking oh my god. I would love to save my progress. Christ. 3-1, don't do that to me. 2.5 hours, more than 2.5 hours. We're done here. we're done here. Oh my god. Okay, that trial was really close, honestly. I kept making little mistakes here and there. So, only problem is that, they want you to point out something wrong with Lotta's picture, of the Nickel Samurai, the one that Adrian Andrews is in, to show that it was Adrian Andrews and not Madame Guard. My only problem with that is the fact that, and it's kind of a problem with all those kinds of situations, is that you can't look at the court record in those situations. And especially in that one where it is all or nothing. If you didn't save before then, you're going all the way back to wherever you last saved, which could have been the very beginning of the trial, potentially. Which would have been doing the entirety of Gumshoe and Old Bag's testimony again. Even though you know the answers now, it's still like an annoying thing to go through if you were to get hit in that spot. So, some way of opening the court record would have helped a lot. Because at that time, it was just kind of like, well, I have to point to something that makes sense. And I don't know. There should be a way to look at the court record during those sections, especially considering they had a section where it took all of your life if you did it wrong. That there should be a way to look at the court record for that. That's really my only complaint. Everything else was just, oh yeah, the knife should have worked. 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 There should be multiple pieces of evidence that work in a situation. And it should, like, lead into the same thing. Because they even showed the knife as a piece of evidence in that same thing. They showed the picture of the crime scene first, but they do show the knife. The knife should have worked. You should be able to show two pieces of evidence for the same contradiction, and it still work correctly if those pieces match. Because the whole thing was the knife. The knife was in his chest. How did you think he was dead? Meanwhile, the game was just like, here's a picture of the crime scene. See the knife. The knife is in his chest. And it's just like, it's both basically the same thing. It's the same line of reasoning. It should have worked. It should have. Should have. Okay. I think those are the only things I have. I think I'm truly done now. I think those two things, I think, are problems. You should be able to look up the court record, especially in circumstances where all of your life is on the line. And the knife should have worked. Or, and I feel like this becomes a problem in certain cases. But
this is the first time that it hit me super hard and was just like, no, 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 the knife should have worked, or something like that. This is the first time it hit me real hard. But there are a couple of cases where two pieces of evidence should do the same contradiction. It shouldn't just be one piece of evidence. They should have programmed it to where it could have took both evidences. Because I'm pretty sure there are situations where it takes two pieces of evidence. It should have took two pieces of evidence in this situation. That bothers me. It does. Because it leads to the same thing. It's the same line of reasoning, it's just the game doesn't accept one. Anyway, I'm done. I have to go to bed because I have work in the morning. So, goodbye. Thank you all for watching, especially if you got this far and stick around, because there's a lot more to come.